Okay, here is a breakdown of the timeline in the Insidious franchise because the movies are not in chronological order. The earliest time that we see is 1953, and this is when Elise is a child. We see this in Insidious 4. Elise is living with her abusive father and her mother, who was killed by a demon, as well as her brother. We learn that when she was 16, she ran away from home because of her abusive father. The next time we see is 1986, when Elise is recruited by Lorraine to come help her son Josh because he is seeing this black veiled spirit. We see this whole thing happen in Insidious 2. So in 1986, obviously, Elaine is doing her paranormal investigations and she is working with her associate Carl. The next time we see is not until 2007, where Elise meets Quinn. Quinn starts being stalked by the spirit of the man who can't breathe and tries to recruit Elise for help. Elise initially declines to help Quinn because her previous visits to the spirit world revealed to her that this bride in black is stalking her. So we don't know what happened in between 1986 when she helped Josh and 2007 when she's recruited by Quinn, but we can assume that she was doing some more investigations and came across the woman in black. So these are all the events of Insidious 3, and the reason she ends up helping Quinn is because she meets with her associate Carl, who's like, well, remember in 1986 when you saved that kid Josh? So it's also possible that Elise never did any other investigation between 1986 and 2007. 2007 is also when Elise meets Specs and Tucker, who obviously we know that she ends up teaming up with. So again, all of these events happen in Insidious 3, and the ending of Insidious 3, we see Elise being watched by a red-faced demon. Fast forward 3 years to 2010, that is when the events of Insidious 4 happen. So Elise goes back to her childhood home, reunites with her brother, and defeats the spirit of Keyface. In this movie, we also see Elise come across a red door, and when she opens the red door, she sees Dalton, and then she leaves the door open. Insidious 4 ends with Elise getting a call from her old friend Lorraine, who asks Elise to come help with her grandson Dalton. Because this overlaps with the events of Insidious 1, and Dalton is now in a coma, and Lorraine knows that what happened to Josh in 1986 is happening to Dalton, so she calls Elise. So that again leads us right into the events of the first Insidious, which came out in 2010 and is intended to take place in 2010. So obviously we know what happens in Insidious 1, Dalton is saved, but Elise is killed in Insidious 1. So the events of Insidious 1 happen over the course of months. Now we're in 2011 and we get the events of Insidious 2, which Insidious 2 picks up right where the first Insidious left off. So Insidious 2, Josh is possessed by Parker Crane. There's this really cool overlap where we see that there's a scene in Insidious 1 where the house alarm goes off, seemingly for no reason, but Insidious 2 explains that it's because Josh in the further ends up going into the house to try and save Callie. So the second movie basically explains anything that was unexplained in the first movie. Now in 2011 in Insidious 2, Elise is still in this movie, but it's all her spirit in the further. She obviously is dead. Insidious 2 ends with Carl repressing Josh and Dalton's memories so they have no recollection of going to the further. Now, Insidious the Red Door. This movie is intended to take place 10 years after the events of Insidious 2, so we can call it like 2021. And from what I've read, the plot of this movie is that Josh and Dalton start to remember their repressed memories and the demons come back for them.